Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of I guess this is I well no I guess this is sort of the watching classic sci-fi movies with Peter series. It's becoming a like a semi monthly thing we do where we're just kind of going through sci-fi movies that we think are worth discussing, and they're kind of all over the place, which is
Well,
cool.
yeah, because you can't call them Joe Loves movies because you've never seen them
Some of
before.
them,
Yeah,
yeah. So far, I
yeah,
think, or I had think, I think there might be one down the line. Like I've seen Enemy Mine, which I want to talk about, but that was the first. Originally, it was like I think I asked. It's this whole thing of like I've missed some movies and I'm asking people's recommendations. Peter gave me some sci-fi ones. All right, we'll do a couple. Although Dark Star we both saw, Peter. So
yeah,
of course I hadn't seen it in like 10, 15
yeah. But I'd
years.
say,
So
yeah, me too. So I gained a new appreciation for it
yeah,
after
I loved
watching
watching
it.
it again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
really the idea, I guess, Dan, is classic sci-fi, and you're here for this one because you, along with
Yes.
everybody else, was like, Joe, Mister Guy that likes sci-fi movies. Why haven't you seen this movie, Source Code, which is what we're talking about today? Um, yeah, so I finally sat down and
Well,
watched
and
it.
and it makes sense to do it now because this is the anniversary.
Yes, and
April of 2021 is the 10-year anniversary. You know, I
yes.
love a good
Yeah, you
anniversary.
love, and that's what we've been doing with Dan's big movie. And Peter hijacked this one from you, so we got to talk about that backstory. All the anger. That's why you're here.
There's no anger. That just means I get to watch another movie. That's fine by me.
yeah.
Another
It's a
movie.
double feature.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh yes,
yeah.
wonderful. So yeah, basically this is kind of a fusion of just a couple random videos we're doing. But Peter, all right, since this was, I think you, on really everybody, it seems like was pushing me that I asked about it. Um, why did you want to push me to watch Source Code and do some discussion about it? And then I'll let you lead. I'll let you lead with the plot synopsis too.
All right. So my reason for suggesting this film is it's a surprisingly fresh take on the Groundhog Day scenario that has been done a lot at this point. But I thought this film raises some finds some interesting approaches to it and some of the ethical quandaries. And we'll talk about things as we proceed. But there's some other knowing what films that Joe likes. There's some other elements that I thought
What?
you might have enjoyed within this. We'll get to that eventually. But yeah, I guess the basic plot synopsis is it's Groundhog Day, but on a train. So I guess it's Under Siege 2, but Groundhog Day.
I love it. Kind of, yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But it also has, which of course we'll get into all the specifics, but it also has a more mystery element to
Mm-hmm.
it as well. So I also think of it like a Murder on the Orient Express
Mm-hmm.
mashup too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really watching it, and obviously it's indicative of the time and the plot specifically because there's kind of a terrorist bomb threat. They're kind of trying to prevent the train from blowing up initially, and then more. It just seems very much to me like really in that wheelhouse of that spy thriller caper, Jason Bourne, Mission Impossible esque kind of cloak and dagger thing. That like, and it really is just that, but with this sci-fi bent of the time loop Groundhog Day thing. That's so I just kept kind of thinking like it just reminds me a lot of that with the sci-fi angle, really. And I guess, I mean, really just going beyond that, I mean, there's a it kind of threw me initially because when I first watched it, I was automatically thinking, okay, so the guy wakes up on a train and they think that he's somebody else. He doesn't really have any memory of that, but he knows he's somebody else. He should be somewhere else. He's a like a helicopter pilot. He says I was in Afghanistan. So okay, maybe there's some sort of displacement thing, maybe some kind of mission, but then you see that okay, he sees in the mirror that he might be somebody else or in somebody else's body, and so it's kind of very confusing at first, and then they kind of switch it up on me, and it goes an extra layer where okay, no, it's not like he's transferred somewhere exactly. He's still kind of there, and it's kind of jumping back and forth, going to another area where he's being fed information by the people on the mission, basically his tech people at some base somewhere, and he looks like he's in a pod, and there's wires and there's liquid, and you got consoles, and I'm thinking, okay, so he's talking about oxygen depleting, it's getting colder. He said he thinks he's in a capsule. Wait, is he out in space for some reason or deep underground? And I'm okay, so, and there's clearly some weird like transference thing. Maybe they have to keep him here to kind of project his mind or whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of something that's different outside of the typical Groundhog Day scenario, where usually it's just you're kind of in a different time and then you go back within that period. Instead here it's like, no, you're displaced, which they even, the one guy said that's actually not time travel, it's time reassignment. You're temporarily going here to this other time, but then you can go back to this specific time period as many times as you are able.
Well, it takes left turns several times in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, one and oh, that's the twist. There's like several different points. And the other thing that I don't know if I appreciated till the rewatch today, and this is probably my 5th time through maybe,
Oh, wow.
but it gets you right into the action. I mean, if you got your ticket and were like 2-3 minutes late to this movie, you would be so lost.
It'd be over. This movie doesn't waste any
really
time.
Throw you right into it immediately, which is rare too. When you think about Groundhog Day, there's like 10 minutes, 12 minutes of build up.
Mm-hmm.
Before the loop actually begins. But here it's I mean, there's not a minute wasted. It's a very tight movie.
No, it's very disorienting in a way, like, but I think that kind of works to what the film's going for, because as he's disoriented and confused, so are you. But you're right, it drops you right in the middle of the plot. Like there was literally no build up. Oh wow, he wakes up and he's like, wait, what's going on? Who are you? What are you calling me? Like, you were right. Not 2 minutes might be generous, Dan. I think less than a minute, you'd be like, wait, did I miss a scene?
Well, I guess I was giving time for the logos too.
Oh, okay. Maybe, well, actually,
yeah.
that's a good point too. That also very indicative of the spy thrillers. I kind of like that minimalist. You've got Jake Gyllenhaal and Michelle Monaghan, Vera Farmiga. You got just the main cast, which is a small cast, and then the title is the exact font at the same space. Like you could almost miss it. I like that it's just like a code, like in Planet Source Code. And by the way, before we proceed, I just want to say, I mean, not too long throughout the movie, this would make a great drinking game, because source code, drink, every time
Anytime they say source code, absolutely.
Source code will get up and running.
And anytime he goes back.
Yeah, it's this won't be so easy and so quick. You get a lot of drinks in a short period of time.
This is also very tight. This is a 90-minute movie.
Yeah, very tight.
Yeah. But I agree. It fits with Dan's point earlier. With this is almost like a Murder on the Orient Express, where we get the same information that he does. Mm-hmm. We know only what he knows, so we start with that off balance. He doesn't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on, and as he pieces things together, so do we. Mm-hmm. We're never really any step or two above, beyond where he is. We're right there with him as we find out each piece of information. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll pick up on the subtle clues earlier, but it takes a while to actually reveal what's going on, which is nice.
And that's also another thing, though, that subverts that normal, Groundhog Day type of thing, because in almost all of those movies, Happy Death Day, Edge of Tomorrow, there's really no reason that we know of for the loop to actually exist, other than like, God wills it or whatever. But here, as the movie goes on, we actually get clear and concise information into exactly why this is happening, exactly who these people are, exactly what the mission is. And I don't think we usually get that information in these types of movies.
No, usually if there's something like this, even like in some next gen episodes, it's like there's an anomaly. We came too close to the space cloud and now it's this way, but they'll eventually figure that out. But usually, no, there isn't like an explanation of this is happening for a reason. Like usually it's like, okay, maybe the hero or the protagonist kind of figures out there's something I can do within this time, maybe to fix it or learn something or grow or whatever. This one is like, no, I have a specific mission. That's why it's happening. But he gets briefed and he gets feedback and he gets kind of support from other people, which is also very unique because it's like a military mission. So there's something there too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And I'm curious, Because look, me and Peter and I should say,
Aha.
I think you're in the same camp, Joe, but not quite as much. But Groundhog Day is, I think, for Peter and I, one of the top films. It's in my top 50 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one for me is right up there with that, because it is so different, even though sort of the one sentence synopsis is, oh well, it's kind of like Groundhog Day, but it's, you know, X, Y, and Z as well. But it's actually completely, other than the time loop, which, you know, like Joe said, it's not even a time loop. It's completely different.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think selling it right there, Groundhog Day and meets Under Siege 2 is just a great selling point. Really, it
For
really is.
you, yes.
It is. It's a good selling
Yeah.
point. But no, really, it's no, I feel like there was half a question there, Dan. Yeah, you guys love Groundhog Day, and I think Groundhog Day is a very good movie. It's one I think that it's another one of those movies that I kind of appreciate more and more over time. I watched it fairly young, and I thought it was good, but it didn't hit me right away. But no, I like it. I enjoyed watching it. I actually saw it at the old Elks Theater with Peter. I remember in what in like the actual with the grainy film and everything. That was
Yeah,
pretty.
Yeah.
with the actual film.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool thing. So no, I definitely like the movie. I think it's a classic, and I think that the concept is interesting. But I think maybe one reason why you two like that movie is because you really enjoy that concept, and maybe you guys can tell me maybe why that concept kind of speaks to you, and then maybe how it also informs this movie, perhaps when you're watching it.
Well, I'll say that the time loops took on a whole other meaning in the pandemic, where during lockdown, many days were pretty much the exact same. When you're locked in your, you know, we're all stuck inside and sort of going through the motions and doing the same thing. But I like the idea in both of these of both this and Groundhog Day has a theme of self-improvement. Now here it's saving a train full of innocents and preventing a terror attack.
Mm-hmm.
Groundhog Day, it's more philosophical improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And we do get elements of that here too, where at
The end, really.
the end when he pays the comedian to do a set, and
That was good. Yeah,
yeah, and goes to get coffee with uh,
Michelle
Michelle
Monaghan.
Monaghan. Yeah.
No, I like that, Dan.
Well, I think I love this concept just in general.
You like time travel in general, I know.
Well, I like time travel, but I definitely like time travel, but time loop specifically. And I have to imagine Groundhog Day was the first one I ever saw, because I saw that in theaters. So that would have been 93 or something. And it was just very intriguing to me. You know me, I like to put myself in the story, and I like to put myself in the mindset of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, to, you know, imagine that every day is this sort of sameness, and
Exactly
what do you
the
do?
same.
There you go, Nine Inch Nails again. But yeah, so I think, and here, Peter hit the nail on the head. So it's really sort of, you know, Groundhog Day is more about him improving himself, right? This Coulter Stevens that Gyllenhaal plays in this, he's already, as far as we know, a pretty decent dude. You know, he's a war veteran. He got killed in the line of duty, this and that and the other thing. And here it's a redemption of other people. You know, he sees throughout the course of his time here all of these other issues that people are having, you know, outside of him. But, you know, you've got, Peter mentioned the comedian, you know, they mentioned, oh, he came in on America's Got Talent, but then he had a bunch of DUIs and his career's faltering. You know, you see the kid who's studying for his test really frantically. You see, you know, people are mad about the 10-minute delay. And so he gets to basically relive it through their eyes each time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another reason, you know, it sort of veers off from Groundhog Day, because that's really Bill Murray sort of redeeming himself and becoming a better person and finding out what is the meaning or whatever. But Coulter Stevens, at the end of the day, he's like, well, I'm going to save these people, even if it doesn't exist, even if there is no people, even if they're already dead, like it doesn't matter. I want to go in and still save them. And I think that speaks volumes about his character. And he is a very, very likable character, even though, Michelle Monaghan's character thinks she knows him because he looks like this other dude that he's embodying, but she doesn't really. So every new thing he does is super weird to her, but every one of them has a purpose for him. And I don't know, it's just a really, like, that end scene where they sort of pause time and we see everybody laughing at the comedian, and his set that Peter had mentioned. That gets me choked up because the movie at the end of the day really is about, finding happiness in life, and everybody in that one moment, even if they're just about to die, they're all very, very happy, and he made that happen, and that was important to him.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's interesting too, because it's like on the surface, you could very easily see this as some kind of, like, it's a thriller, and it's sort of the anti-terrorism thing, and it's very informed by the time. But you're right there. The movie is dealing with a couple different themes, and it's kind of using science fiction to touch on all of them a little bit. And I think you're right. It's kind of the little redemptiveness of human connection, and his kind of observations about all the different people on the train, and him kind of learning to sort of appreciate things and kind of spread that to these other people in some small way. And even just the idea that, maybe they aren't exactly really real or alive, and maybe it doesn't fully matter, maybe in some small way, because it's like this is a piece of him and a piece of these people that's just kind of suspended on some level. It does kind of matter. It is still a victory. And so I think that was very cool. And I'd say that was really kind of where the movie could have ended. The movie has a couple little endings, and that would have been, I know that would have been like not the clear happy ending they kind of push for later, which I was still okay with, but that would have been, I think, the slightly braver ending, because it's like, it's not exactly a happy ending, but he still kind of got his completion of his arc. And it was a beautiful moment of like, okay, this is like the ending of his life, but he's like suspended in that moment. That's kind of like heaven in a weird way.
It is, but in addition to that, I think the ending with Vera Farmiga at the base is even more sort of uplifting, because she's basically the only person that knows what even happened, because everything got reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way they did that as well.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing about that is that kind of plays into the idea of like, and that was one thing I was wondering if they were gonna, are they actually gonna follow through with that, because the head of the science division, or just the head of the department, is like, it doesn't matter, you go back in there, it doesn't matter. I'm like, if this is an alternate reality, then literally every time he goes in, it's a different possible future. So like, are they going to follow through? And maybe what happens if he sticks with it past the 8 minutes? Oh, okay, he kind of gets to be in another world. And so the other world he left behind, that was it. But in this world, there is hope, and these people can have, better lives and continue, and so could he. And really, so I did like that they did that, but I don't think they necessarily had to. I think that ending with them kind of suspended in time would have been good enough by itself. Uh, they they also, of course, had to have the hook where, if the right terrorist attack comes, source code, drink again, will have its time again. I was like, come on, we get it, man.
All right, that line might have been a bit much.
That scene, I was like,
I don't disagree. They could have ended it there at sort of the freeze frame, and I think that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more sort of powerful that she gets those texts from him after the fact and all that. I think the reason that these sort of the time loop movies and stuff, people enjoy them, is because they're all about sort of second chances and 10th, 20th chances, whatever. And I think we all have sort of moments that, okay, well, if we could relive that again, I would do this. And in these kinds of movies, these people get that chance to like perfect those moments, you know?
Sure, and also think it's something that is pretty cool. He initially thinks it's like some sort of advanced simulation, and you get a lot of the whole like video game idea of like this is the you initially think it might be the most advanced form of that. Like okay, literally that's one of the great aspects of role playing and stuff like that is okay, you get to do the same level again, but oh you can have a conversation with the person this way, or you could take this action that way, and it's like as advanced as video games get you can have more and more options, which is another way for people to kind of explore that idea. So, like that was initially my thought when he said it's a simulation. Like, okay, maybe this is just recreating these events with that level of realism. So that was another way to look at it too. Uh, yeah, no, I actually think I thought the freeze frame moment was an emotional one, but the thing that actually got me choked, which I think is the heart of the movie, is when he actually gets to talk to his dad, when he gets to talk to Scott Bakula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's the moment that always gets me. And it's interesting because he repeatedly earlier in the movie keeps saying, "Oh, I want to call my dad."
Hmm.
In the early going, like in the first loop, even I think he mentions wanting to call his dad. Um, so it's there. It's sort of the through line, and that becomes the big climax. Not stopping the terrorist attack. It's calling his dad and having that short conversation that uh, does set up again for the frozen moment in time and that sort of perfect run
Hmm.
that we get in the end.
And that's long before he knows he's, dead,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right. That is a great setup that keeps sort of coming up as we go.
Yeah, I thought the fact that I thought they did a really good job, and Gyllenhaal I think is a really good actor, and he really sells that vulnerability of like what is going on, and kind of having to wrestle with the fact that I'm like not really dead or exactly, and that's another thing that the movie touches on too is like okay, is he human now? Does he have human rights? Because he's basically like this half alive corpse that they're just kind of keeping just alive with just enough brain function. Like how much is he really him? It kind of touches on some of the ideas of consciousness, and his consciousness sort of gets diffused into like this other reality. So it's like, okay, there's a part of it that really is just that. So I mean, the movie touches on a lot of little sci-fi concepts. It really does. Dances with them a little bit.
And like you said, Gyllenhaal is great in this role. But this movie like was pretty much the start of like the really well acted, interesting roles of Gyllenhaal.
Hmm.
Because like before this, I had only really seen a couple things. I saw Brokeback Mountain, of course. I saw Donnie Darko, which I didn't really care for at the time.
Hmm.
And then I saw The Good Girl with Jennifer Aniston. But other than that, like I didn't see Jarhead, I didn't see Zodiac,
Oh,
uh, the more action oriented stuff. But this was 2011. Then you had End of Watch, Prisoners, Enemy, Nightcrawler, Southpaw, and Everest,
it's the
all right in a row.
you could say it's
mhm.
the beginning of the Gyllenhaal sans. Gyllenhaal sans.
The Gyllenhaal assance.
Gyllenhaal sans.
Yeah, so I think this was the first movie of his that I was like, I mean, he was great in Brokeback, but that's more dramatic. Here we're doing not just dramatic stuff, like Peter mentioned, the phone call with his dad is very dramatic, but also, a lot of action stuff. Even a little bit of comedy along the way, not much,
Here and
but
there.
the way he's sort of interacting with some of the guys and gals on the train,
Well,
you know,
that's kind of like with that made me think of just like the video game protagonist that's going through it over and again. He's kind of a bit of a jerk sometimes to people. Like he's a bit of a
oh yeah,
smartass.
Yeah,
Like whatever,
well,
buddy.
he's on that mission.
Yeah, he's on a mission. He's like, I literally don't have time for this.
Hmm.
I get it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Vera Farmiga as well. This is, I think, the first thing I ever saw her
Hmm. I think
in,
I
and
might have seen her
she's
in.
fantastic. She was in
yeah.
Up in the Air, but I'm not sure that came out like within a year of this. I'm not sure because I saw that on DVD. I saw this in the theater, so I don't know which I saw first. But
I'm pretty sure I saw her in The Departed before this.
oh yeah, see, I didn't see The Departed till years ago.
But she's very good. I don't know, is she underrated or not? I don't really know.
Well, she hasn't. I don't think she's won an Oscar yet. So
That doesn't necessarily
No.
mean that she's like people. She
Um,
might be underrated or not.
well, I think I would say she's known more though, uh, to horror fans than anything else because of the Conjuring movies, and then
That's
she
right.
played Norma Bates at Bates
yeah,
Motel.
That's
yeah,
right.
Bates Motel's yeah.
So I think she's carved out certainly a niche in the horror and thriller genres, but in terms of action and drama, I think she probably is underrated because I don't think a lot of people know her.
Niche. Um, yeah, no, I thought she was great in this too. Actually, there was a small cast, but they were pretty good. Yeah,
Very small cast.
it was well used though. Um, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the time thing is counting down, so we got about 5 minutes. But I don't know. I feel like we covered pretty good ground, unless you want to do another part.
I mean, I could certainly talk about this for longer,
Yeah,
but
I
Peter,
certainly
hear
could.
more from
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
yeah.
Peter, come on, speak up.
So one of the reasons that I recommended this to Joe is that it gets into the more ethical side of this too, of using him as a weapon. That reminded me a lot of RoboCop and the idea
Ah,
of using at what point does your life no longer become yours? And this is a little more maybe on the nose than RoboCop, as he actually does say, "I want to die," whereas we never quite get that from Officer Murphy.
no.
Uh, but there is, I like that this engages with the ethical side of things and whether this is necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. And they don't, and he actually does, they don't really take into account his free will. And he's like, I want to kind of end this. And the head of the guy's like, no, for basically, he doesn't really have rights now. We're going to
mm,
keep using him for these missions as long as we
Goodwin
possibly
does
can.
though,
Goodwin does.
because
yeah.
they were both captains. So on a more deep level, she I think is able to say, well, if I were in his shoes, what would I want?
Hmm.
And yeah, it's interesting because right, he obviously saved. They keep saying millions of lives. I don't know how. I was
Uh,
thinking thousands maybe,
Chicago, I guess. So
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess the whole town maybe or the whole city. But to use that over and over and over again, great, save a lot of lives. But right, it's a very interesting question of at what cost, and when does that life become only used for this purpose and such. Yeah, I agree. Great
also,
questions.
good, good. This isn't a very effects heavy movie, but I will say, with the prosthetics they show of him, where he's like half his body's gone, his arm's gone, like that was pretty well done. And I actually was wondering, when you guys saw the initial image of Gyllenhaal's body, his physical body, I thought that might have been a stunt double or something because he's looking away and he's covered in facial hair. I thought that initially it wasn't him, and then towards the end of the movie there's a close up where it is. I don't know if that was like CGI or whatnot, but it was pretty convincing. But I was like, is he like so deformed that that's not him? So maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know.
I believe that was actually a practical effect. It was a dummy that they put together.
Well, that was a good dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought very convincing, and it also kind of once again brings back some RoboCop similarities. Except I think RoboCop. Well, let's see. He was a brain, and what his nervous system, stomach, and that was about it, right? Ugh.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah, they.
and a face they remade to honor him that
Mhm.
wasn't, which by the way blew my mind about that too, that wasn't actually his real face, it was artificial. So yeah, it's similar themes of like, well, okay, you're no longer the definition of human, so maybe you're not really alive, you don't have rights, but we clearly see that he does have autonomy and consciousness, sense of self, and still that drive to do good. But you did kind of wonder, like, okay, how much of this is really the original him? We're not
Mhm.
really sure. The guy even says
Well,
this
we
is
know
like an
he has
after image.
memories though because of
Yeah.
the thing with his father. So we know he remembers things that
Hmm.
happened to him.
That's true. And it makes you kind of wonder how much the scientist guy kind of has a sense of it, because it's like, yeah, you're an after image, and he keeps just pushing that what you do here doesn't matter, but it does. And it's just, it kind of makes you wonder why maybe I don't know why he's not really care. I guess because it doesn't affect their timeline, their reality. Maybe it's not a priority. One of those ideas. I'll tell you what,
Yeah, could easily be.
and it's like nothing happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not in the new timeline now. We're
Part two, they call it.
Yeah.
Return to the podcast.
Yeah, so do we have to
Oh.
re-record the first 40 minutes again? And
Oh
then
man. Well, I've had to do that a couple times for things, but I hate doing it. I know we had to do that for
Yeah.
Film Fanatics once, Dan, and that's
That's very annoying.
not good. I like to just kind of
Yeah.
be with it. So this is a continuation,
In the
unless it
moment.
gets deleted, and this is all people see. Then it's like the movie; they're dropped right into the plot. No idea what's going on. I hope you've seen source code before, because no idea.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, some minor technical things with recording. But no, I like what you suggested, Dan. So wait a minute. Remind me. Apparently, Peter likes the director Duncan Jones. Remind me what he's done again.
Well, his big thing that got in the news here was Moon. He did Moon,
Oh.
which is a movie that I'm sort of on the minority of. I didn't love it, but I know Peter's a huge fan, and actually, Gyllenhaal saw Moon and suggested that Jones direct source code because of that.
Well, that makes sense, Peter, because yeah, I think Moon is quite good. But once again, Sam Rockwell, Dan, come on. But no,
This is true.
no, a good movie. But I think that makes sense because obviously more action in source code, but definitely more focus of directing with a small cast in a tight area, but with high concept stuff. So I like.
Yeah, similar themes actually.
Yeah,
Definitely
kind of.
more sort of heady sci-fi, and more existential questions and that. And really, much like Rockwell was alone for the most part in Moon, Gyllenhaal is more or less alone because the people on the train have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Goodwin, but he's doing it by himself for the most part as well.
What's the name of the guy, the actor who's like the head of the department? Because he's always a scientist guy. He was in what, Hunger Games and stuff. Like,
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright.
yeah.
Jeffrey Wright. I like him. I couldn't
Yeah.
think of his name. Was he in Westworld too?
Yes, he is
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in
also
Westworld.
a mad scientist in Westworld.
He's always I like he's got that great voice. Just
You'll be happy to know that he is in the new Batman film as well, Joe.
Oh, who's he gonna be?
James Gordon, is that Commissioner Gordon?
Oh, he's gonna be Gordon.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I could see it. Okay.
And he's going to be in the new Bond as well. He's been in a couple of Bond movies, I think.
Yeah, he's Felix Leiter in the Craig universe of Bonds.
So I thought it was an interesting choice they gave for him to have him, be having to use a cane and whatnot in this film. I'm not sure why that decision was made, but this is the first thing I ever saw him in. So when he came up in the Hunger Games and he was, walking, I was like, oh, that's interesting that they made that choice. But it works for the character.
I wanted to actually say I thought there might have been a subtle distinction that I thought initially it might have been related to the attack or something. And I wanted to actually ask you that, Peter, because I do think you're right, Dan. I think that there was a choice with that. And I thought it would have been very easy to just do, okay, like when they go towards the end and it's the universe that's been affected, okay, he doesn't have the cane thing anymore. But in this one, he does have the cane, but he's not as reliant on it. You'll notice he puts it away and is able to walk just fine to his desk, almost like he doesn't need it that much. So I thought it was a very subtle thing, but I liked that. I think that might have indicated a change, maybe.
Yeah, I think there might be something to that. I don't, I assume anytime that Duncan Jones is involved, there is intent in because even something like Warcraft, which was his big budget, had a very strong attention to detail, or so I'm told by the people in the know, with a lot of references to the lore and the Warcraft games and certain symbols that another director might have missed.
Well, I feel like he is definitely a guy with attention to detail, and I guess even with a big movie like Warcraft, he'd probably pay attention to the source material and want to give like Easter eggs to people. I'll admit I'm not as in the know about that, but is that the biggest budget thing he's done?
Yeah, it's a lot of other mid-budgets. I think he's working on think he's working on Rogue Trooper, which is an old 2000 AD comic.
Oh, nice.
Um, but yeah, that is his big budget, and I think he said something to the effect is he likes doing the smaller budgets more, less pressure.
Yeah, I could sense
But
he's probably got more freedom and I mean, I think I don't know if you guys can agree. I know Dan agrees. I think Warcraft is probably not his best movie.
I
no.
no, well, this would be his best movie, but I did not care for Warcraft that much. But I don't know. I don't know a lot about the world and whatever. So
Mhm.
the world of Warcraft. Um,
Oh,
but to get back to Jeffrey Wright, I always sort of assumed that they had his character in that state because basically whatever ailment he has, I'm not sure. You know, it's not explained or anything, but
no.
I sort of always assumed that he eventually hoped that he would create this universe and then he himself would be able to go into the source code and help people in that way,
Hmm.
and sort of give him, you know, sort of the ability to do things that he can no longer do, or something in our world. I always sort of assumed that maybe that was something.
Well, that's interesting because I think maybe we're just spitballing here, but I think you're right. You can definitely potentially theorize about a lot of things about the character based on the very little we know with the lines they're given and how they convey them. Like with him, there's interesting those lines about how Hall kind of like sort of doesn't respect him because he wasn't a soldier, and he's clearly kind of feels insecure. But this is very much his way of wanting to be in command, save lives, and he's kind of really surprised, and that's maybe one reason he doesn't want to let Hall's character die. It's just like, well, wait, a soldier, what you could do this, you could potentially be immortal and be able to be the hero forever. So that's an interesting theory that maybe that despite his physical ailments, maybe he could think that mentally he could go in and be the guy that saves the day
Mm-hmm.
in these scenarios. So that's an interesting idea, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's a
thank
thinker.
you.
You're welcome. um, yeah. Anything else? Because I could probably say one or two more things.
Uh,
Um,
I would
Oh,
say,
oh, that's right. I had a
yeah,
question for you.
yeah. Say more. I think I said about everything I needed to say.
One little thing which I'm glad they did, and they were playing with a little bit. Was a little nod about when she's like racial profiling because he sees like an Arabic looking guy and thinks, okay, that's got to be the terrorist. It's not. How'd you guys feel about spoilers? You know, terrorist is kind of more of a homegrown sort of guy.
yeah,
Well, first
I
of all, we
mean,
should have said spoilers 40 minutes ago. If yeah, I think we've
Whoops,
definitely delved into the ending of this movie plenty of times.
whoops,
But
whoops.
no, go ahead, Peter.
Once
well,
again,
yeah,
hey, they don't know. Part two,
it's one of the it plays on the expectations of 2011.
very
So
post
2011,
9/11.
we have not gotten Bin Laden yet. When this, I
Yes,
forget, was
That's
before.
it
true.
right around
Yes,
this
before.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, April 2011. But we don't have Bin Laden yet. The idea that terrorism fears are still out there, and we haven't quite realized that there's a whole movement of extremist right wing white terrorists that have always kind of been here, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it's sort of and the fact that the bomb has that American flag on it tells
Yeah.
us an awful lot. But
Very patriotic, he says.
yeah, it sort of foresees where things are going,
Oh.
even if we don't, I
Oddly,
guess.
yes. It was
Mm.
definitely a look into our future.
Well,
And
sci-fi is prophetic that way, right?
it's prophetic, but also I do think that's one more thing that this movie just subverts with the expectations. You know, because you could think maybe it was that guy that he actually got. You could maybe think it's the comedian, Russell
Mm.
Peters, because he's not white either.
Hmm.
And they sort of give us a really interesting mix of people on that train. You know,
Hmm.
you have the old lady upstairs, you have the two younger kids, like the one studying for the test, and his seatmate. So yeah, it really is a whole sort of sweeping, Benetton ad of people. And it's definitely interesting that the lonely white guy was the one.
Yeah, no, and it's the you could say, I'm sure this was another commentary that the train on this journey towards progress is a microcosm for America. Very diverse group of people who are all have their different issues and they're kind of clashing with each other. They're all very frustrated, but they're all together. And of course, you
Yeah.
kind of, like you said, with the final moment of being able to kind of get everybody to laugh and try and see the positive and work together. It's really interesting that that's sort of the antithesis of what the villain's about, who doesn't believe in people, doesn't believe in the way things are, doesn't have hope, which is why he wants to resort to violence. And it's a bit on the nose, but Gyllenhaal basically tells him, no burying the world in rubble today. It's
Right.
kind of speaking against these two opposing ideas, one that's very hopeful and one that's very not.
Pre-Snowpiercer.
Yes, it's very pre-Snowpiercer. That's where it ends up. Keeps going, and before you know it, that's it. That's it.
Right.
This is no, it's like pre-Piercer.
Pre-Piercer. Yes, absolutely. What about the logic of all of this? Because I do get a little lost in how the source code actually works, and it's one of these things where I sort of forgive its real world applications because it's a movie and I'm entertained, but I do get a little bit confused with the actual, like, how would this work in the real world?
The source code. Well, I mean, that's also part of the issue, is like they kind of sort of explain more about what it is going on. Like with the metaphor about the afterglow of the light bulb, kind of makes you think like, okay, initially what I thought the source code really was is like, okay, he's kind of got this brain matter. So that essence of, I guess, his neuron energy or whatever, his essence can kind of connect with the aftermath of these people's collective memory, that like last 8 minutes they talk about before you die. Like, okay, that's how they were able to create this picture. So that's why I thought, okay, this is more like kind of like a very, very real simulation. But then they kind of tie that into, okay, oh, this is actually like tapping into another possible time. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. But yeah, they throw it, they don't really explain it. They sort of change it going on. And there are a couple minor issues I have, and that's among them. They're very, very loose with what the source code is, but it has applications, Dan. It has applications.
Oh yeah. I know it does.
They tell you.
Yeah, but I think part of the point is that Jeffrey Wright doesn't actually understand how his machine works.
He doesn't. No.
He thinks he does. He has an idea of how it works, but doesn't understand that it's actually creating changes in
what can happen in the space time. You're right, and that's also why it's forgiving. It's like we said, he doesn't think that saving these people matters, and Gyllenhaal's like, no, in some way I feel like it does, and I can affect change in some way, and it turns out he really can.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another reason the ending, I think, is so effective, because he has no idea that Gyllenhaal actually did all of that, and the Goodwin and him got it together, and he doesn't remember any of that, her trying to take over the machine and whatever. But yeah, like, who knows, maybe this was done 6 different times and he still has no idea.
No.
Because I guess the point is, if it works, he won't ever know about it.
No, because it was a different timeline with who knows how many times. That for him, source code hasn't gone yet. It hasn't gone green.
Right.
But it'll have applications. One day source code will have its day. Yeah. I think my only real issues with the movie were that they play a little bit with that, but I guess that's forgivable. I think the one issue I had was that for as nice as the themes were, I kind of felt that the movie could have used a little more time to actually get to know all the people on the train, because it feels like, okay, we get the sense that I guess he knows them better because he's gone through it so many times, but we, the audience, don't get to see that. So it's just kind of assumptions we make. So I think that could have hit the final scene home even more.
But like Peter said, we only really know what Gyllenhaal knows. A lot of that time that we're in, that we're on that train, is sort of real time. And, he spends so much time pretty much right away, once he figures out, where the bomb is and how to do it. He spends so much time going through all of that immediately that he doesn't really get to know them either. But that's the point. He doesn't necessarily need to know that he wants to help them and wants to save them.
That's true.
So that never really bothered me, to be honest.
I guess
Peter?
just with yeah. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was so tight. I don't know that another loop would have added too much to this. That it almost feels like a short film, despite being 90 minutes of being very focused on this, keeping our eyes as Gyllenhaal's eyes. We're only seeing his perspective. We're only seeing what he's going through. We do get a little bit of Vera Farmiga at the end, but it keeps the focus, and I think that's to its benefit. I don't know that a 2-hour version of this would work as well.
I mean, I wouldn't be suggesting a 2-hour version, but I know you guys love Groundhog Day so much, and one of the key aspects of that movie is, him managing to use this time to get to know these people more and form those connections. And this movie, even with an additional 5 or 10 minutes of runtime, I think you could have had a little more closeness with the supporting
You
characters.
wanted to see Gyllenhaal go take piano lessons and
Yep,
learn. You
yep,
wanted him to
yep.
leave the train,
Yeah, leave the train,
learn
go
ice
learn how to play
sculpting.
baseball. Yeah. No, it's not the exact same thing, but my point is that, if you want me to care about all the characters, I feel like they do an effective job of that, but I do think they could have pushed a little more. And that kind of leads into another issue is that this movie has some good sci-fi elements to it for sure, but it doesn't really go deep into almost any of them. It touches on a lot of things to get you thinking, but I've seen movies of this type that have gone much further, and I don't want to say that this is superficial, but it's just kind of using the sci-fi to kind of tell this other story, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just feel like it could have gone a little deeper with some of it.
I think as a bigger budget, was blockbuster, whatever, I think it actually is very, very tight in what it's trying to accomplish. Like I know there's some of the ones you might be thinking of, like Ex Machina, or
Oh,
Annihilation, that
even
really go a lot
even
deeper into the themes.
even Edge of Tomorrow, I think,
Mhm.
goes further with it. To be honest, it's more
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that could be, but I think that's also a lot easier to understand. Because that's a straight ahead like time loop movie,
Hmm.
and I love it, of course. But I think that's more straight ahead than this one. I think this
Maybe.
one's certainly more. Well, I don't know. I was going to use the word complex, but you may not agree with that with the statement you just made.
Well, no, I think its main focus is very tightly well done, but I think this is a very effective thriller that plays with some sci-fi concepts well, but it doesn't commit fully to most of them, which is why we kind of have these different ideas we're briefly discussing and about, okay, what exactly what the source code really is. It's like, okay, it gets you thinking, which is good, but I don't want to say, like I said, I don't want to say it's not complicated, but it is a tightly focused story, which is effective, but because it's tightly focused, it can only do so much with a lot of these little things. It's more of a character study than anything else for Gyllenhaal's character, which is fine.
And I think it's very effective in that. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
It just
Those issues did not bother me.
No, it's
But
also just it's just that I think what it is that I like a lot of the concepts it's going for. It's just like it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I really did like it quite a bit, but I'm kind of getting there. It's not as bad as this, but I get a little bit of that like Nolan preachiness where we'll have a sci-fi concept and use it to really push an agenda that comes off a little cheesy at points. And I'm like, I don't know. It's not. It just pushed it a little bit at some parts, just a little. So I'm not saying it doesn't tug at the heartstrings at some parts, but uh, there was a little bit of that, and that's just and that just gives me like thoughts about like Interstellar, where it's like, okay, we're just gonna say this thing and then not really commit to it at all, just to get an emotional response, and I guess that's fine, but it's not,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying, and I feel bad kind of dragging it through the mud here, but it gave me like a little bit of the afterglow light bulb effect of that, so to speak. to quote Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, I think it works a lot better here because of the way they set things up, because we get Gyllenhaal's point of view, because the big crux is calling his dad and having that conversation.
And his dad is Captain Archer, so Star Trek
Yeah.
connection
Well,
again.
he
Quantum Leap.
yeah, it's
See,
Quantum Leap,
they
which
knew what they were
actually
doing.
does have an episode wherein
Train on a train.
yeah, he calls his own dad.
Oh, does he?
I think it's season 2, maybe. It's been a while since I've
See,
been through
they
that,
know
but
what they're
yeah.
doing.
They already
Yeah,
know.
that was intentional casting, but I think it was for a voice on a phone. It was very well cast.
No, it was a great scene. No, it was a
Yeah.
very powerful scene. I don't disagree. No, I think it's very good. But look, I had to come at it with a more critical eye because you guys are like, oh, you're the sci-fi guy. You've never seen this great movie Source Code, and and then you guys hype it up as the best thing ever, and you know what that does. You know what that does.
To play off of your example, I think this film is better than any Christopher Nolan movie.
Oh, well, damn. Even
I think
better.
the only one that comes close would be The Dark Knight.
I was about to say, well, you know something? Let me think about that.
But see, The Dark Knight didn't need any setting up.
No,
we
it's
knew
Batman.
all the characters from the first movie, or even if we didn't, it's Batman and the Joker. So for an original concept, this far, supersedes that.
All right. I you know what? I think I mostly agree with that. I kind of like some of Christopher Nolan's earlier movies. This is more of a Memento-esque thing, but
yeah,
my personal favorite of his is actually Insomnia, which I really like that one a lot. Another creepy Robin Williams movie, but I think in terms of the big bombastic sci-fi stuff, I think Christopher Nolan, I don't want to make this a side rant. I think Christopher Nolan definitely touches on good ideas that are universal, that people can grab onto and say, yes, I'm thinking deeply about this thing. But I've always kind of felt like Christopher Nolan was, I don't even want to say it's style over substance, because like in The Dark Knight, he'll say all these really intelligent things, but it's literally the characters explaining their motivations, explaining the plot, explaining the themes. It's like, just because that's not letting people figure it out for themselves subtly. I think Source Code has certainly more subtlety than a lot of those movies.
Well, and I also think, to keep comparing, I also think Nolan is, you said style over substance. Nolan is a lot more, I think, visual and wants to be intricate with, this movie does not have a lot of intricate set pieces. I mean, it's the train and it's the home base,
the pod,
and that's about it, and so this movie, I think, needs to succeed on its ideas and its script and everything that goes with that, and I think it does.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a tightly written thing, and you're right. I think Nolan has a tendency to kind of just, let's focus on the visual, let's focus on the music, and that'll take you, versus the story might have some,
right.
Yeah, Nolan always wants to explain, we're 3 layers deep into the dream, so this is what's, whereas this, we get an explanation, but it doesn't appear to be true at the end. It appears to be wrong. Which I like, that there's an element of this that even they don't quite understand, and we don't need to have characters explaining to us this, that, or the other thing, or how we know it's a dream. And this feels a little more unique, and that's one of the problems I have with Nolan, is everything he does sort of feels like he's doing something that somebody else already did, but with his own spin on it.
Well, I guess, isn't that what every creator does, though?
Yeah,
to an extent?
I mean, it's the same complaint that you could make about Quentin Tarantino,
but we love him.
Yeah,
but he's not trying to hide that, though. He kind of leans.
No,
into
Tarantino's very honest about what he's doing. Nolan's like, Inception's like nothing anyone's ever done, unless you've seen Paprika.
Look, I think, to sort of wrap up that tangent, I think Nolan just thinks he's better than us, and that's okay. But maybe he's not.
Whereas think that Duncan Jones doesn't.
I think Duncan Jones and Gyllenhaal and the writers and everything, I think they want us to, really engulf ourselves in the characters and the themes, rather than intricate set pieces and look at how clever I am and whatever.
Which I mean, obviously we all like movies, so there's nothing about, getting into the world through visuals. I just think that Nolan, I think, replaces that with story
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't deny that. All right, so I did want to make one other point, and it's more about the era in general than this specific movie.
sure.
But I just want to throw it out there to you guys that I think 2011 is the best year in the last decade in cinema.
Okay.
And it's funny because the award shows would not indicate that. The artist won, the best picture that year,
Yeah.
good movie, which I liked at the time, but come on. But you had, my favorite is The Descendants, but you also had Drive,
Yeah.
50-50, The Great Source Code, Bridesmaids, Horrible Bosses.
What a year.
I think this was a fantastic year for movies. And I think this movie probably got lost a little bit in the shuffle.
Oh, that,
Um,
that's a good point you make, Dan.
yeah,
I think the era is good, and I don't mean to cut you off. You got more?
no. The
Uh,
only thing I was going to say was I think another part that it gets lost in is it's not available really for streaming anywhere. So people
oh,
aren't seeing it pop up on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. And, maybe it rotates in and out and it just
oh,
isn't on right now.
that
But
that
I think this is a movie that should be talked about in the same circles with some of the great, a lot of people talk about Ex Machina, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about Source Code.
No, and I actually that kind of leads me to a point that'll make you both happy. I think for like we're kind of like talking about these maybe undersung classic sci-fi movies. I feel that's what we've been doing, Peter, is kind of trying to bounce around, and that was kind of the great thing about this was the whole joke was why hasn't Joe seen Source Code, and I'm not sure. I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe this got lost in the shuffle around that time when I was in school, and I don't know, just never came across it. But this has been always ranked as like I've seen some lists where this is considered like one of the best sci-fi movies, at least of the last 10 years, 25 years, some in all time. Like this is one that pops up as really good sci-fi, and I agree. And I was just, but as I've always joked with you guys, like every time, I think part of the reason I didn't see it is because I might have seen a trailer and I always got it confused with Eagle Eye, which I saw, which I didn't really like that much. And I'm like, oh, that looks just like Eagle Eye. I'm like, because it's another thriller tech thing. And but here, I think I figured out another degree of
LaBeouf,
my
though,
LaBeouf, but I think I figured out another degree of my confusion after watching this. I'm like, I think that was part of it.
is Michelle Monaghan in both? Is
Michelle
that the
Monaghan
bit?
is an eagle eye. And I was like, oh, damn it. That was part of it. I saw her face. I'm like, oh, I've seen that stupid movie, which Eagle Eye was fine. But I'm like, but that's the thing that every time, like, why do I keep thinking Eagle Eye is Source Code? Oh, because it's another kind of thriller
Yeah.
sci-fi-esque thing that has Michelle Monaghan. And like, oh, and
Mhm.
I guess Jake Gyllenhaal and Shia LaBeouf are the same people now. But seriously, it just, that was what kept getting displaced in my mind. So I think Eagle Eye is part of the problem here.
But this is a beloved movie.
Yes, I've
You
seen
know,
literally.
92 on Rotten. Ebert gave it 3.5 out of
No,
4. I mean, people love this film.
it's very fresh critically, and I've literally everyone I've met, you guys, other people that aren't on here, my buddy. I don't know if I told you this, Dan, buddy. I told Peter, even Gimli, James. I told him about this. Like, yeah, this is movie Source Code. They're like, you haven't seen. It's like, what? You've never seen Source Code? And I'm like, so that
Wow.
speaks volumes, I think, because he's not like the most hardcore movie guy, but he knows his
Yeah.
sci-fi. So I was like, wow. So okay, fine. I've seen Source Code. It's
Well,
happened now.
I think it's hard to do something this original that isn't based on existing material, whether it be a book that came out or whatever. But this, is its own thing, and I think that's why people do always quote or cite, Ex Machina and Annihilation and some of these more original ideas because it is kind of rare when we get them.
That's true, and it's a good thing.
Midsummer and all of that.
No, I like that though, but I did want to ask you guys kind of a question before we finish up. Maybe it's because of Jeffrey Wright's, little lines here or there, but doesn't this seem like it's ripe for a Source Code 2? Just rolls off the tongue so well. Source Code 2. Maybe not like a good one, but like a directed DVD,
Oh yeah, I
doesn't it
definitely
seem
think
like
there.
that?
Yeah, I think that might be the bad timeline where they have a terrorist attack and that there's
Well,
we're
it
we're on
would be Liam Neeson. I think we could
yeah
all
well we're on source
doing the
code
bit.
we're on source code 5 where Liam Neeson's having to
Oh,
fight Dolph Lundgren or something. Yeah.
wait, I've got it. Eventually,
I could do without
I'll
that.
try and direct it. It'll be Steven Seagal starring in Source Code 6, Darker Territory. Oh
That
man.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
that's
I could definitely see a sequel, but I think this is one of the movies that just absolutely doesn't need one.
no, it doesn't need one, but for some reason the setup for it and how cheaply made it was, I feel like there could have been some sequels pumped out, maybe direct to video or something.
Yeah.
It sounds good, like Source Code 2. Oh man, it's terrible. But yeah, I guess what did you guys think about this movie grade wise? Since we got to wrap up, it looks like we talked long again.
Well, I'll say it's spoiler alert. It's in my top 50, so we'll be talking about it again soon. I
Oh,
think.
again.
Wow. This is an A for me from when I originally saw it. It made my, I think it was like a 75 or 78 or something when I was trying to whittle down my top 50. It did make the original list for that. Yeah, I mean, I would say this is firmly in my top 100 films of all time.
Oh damn.
And after watching it today, that just confirms it. And like I said, this is probably my fifth time through.
Yeah, you've watched this a lot, Dan. You don't rewatch stuff that
That
much.
first year it came out, I saw it twice in the theaters, and then I watched it. It was one of the first Blu-rays I got, so I watched it on my Blu-ray player.
Man.
And then I think we watched it. Well, no, we couldn't watch it for Film Fanatics because you've never seen it. But
No.
I think I watched it at some point with Justin, and so here we are. You know, time number 5, and
Wow.
it still holds up. I'm still finding new and interesting things to say about it. So yeah, this for me could be an A plus. I guess I'll leave it with that A. But yeah,
So really, for you,
what do
this
you
time,
think?
what do I think?
B minus, it sounded like.
Well, first
Yeah.
of all, I think that, like, Dan, I think that, so really for you, this is Source Code 5. So you're already in a couple timelines now.
Yeah,
No, for
yeah.
me,
I saw the Neeson one.
look, yeah, I'm sure it was great. Get your drinks ready. No, no, for me, plot twist again, much like the movie, it's like a D plus, like horrible movie.
Figure.
No. I think this has been so overhyped now that I couldn't give it an A plus. I was
Right.
looking for stuff, but no, there's definitely a lot of good talk, and I probably could leave with an A. That was very solid. I love a very tightly directed movie that it was just it really it fooled me because I love how I was going into it with some preconceived notions about what they were going to do, but then him kind of being able to switch his consciousness, being sort of half dead, like that whole first part of the movie just really had me going. So it was pretty cool. I liked it a bit. I'm glad I watched it. I'd watch it again. It was very good.
How about 5 times?
Well,
Maybe it's quick.
I would
Peter's
definitely
right. It's a tight movie.
tight movie. I would definitely do Source Code 2 at the bare minimum. Maybe Source Code 3. But if we get to 4 or 5, I don't know. We'll have to see who's Gyllenhaal's place at that point.
Gyllenhaal seems to be one of the other actors that just never seems to do sequels, though. I can't think of any. Bubble Boy 2, maybe?
Yeah.
They do.
Man, he's a good actor. I might have to show this one to Honey Lemon because she likes him a lot.
Very
I think
good.
she'd like this movie, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, they even made sure he died in Spider-Man, so he can't come back.
That's right.
Mysterio can't come
That's
back.
right. I forgot about that.
Spoilers are for Spider-Man Far From Home if you haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, looking at his filmography, he has never done a sequel.
You know what, though? Once again, I think Nightcrawler 2 would be interesting when he's running the business.
I definitely don't deny that.
Yeah, I don't. That's weird. Yeah, but he's a guy from what I've seen in interviews that he takes the craft seriously. He's very open to different projects. I think he likes to get stuff that challenges him, and he's usually pretty selective. I feel these days.
Even as a kid, though, he did City Slickers, but he did not do Legend of Curly's Gold.
He knew. Okay.
Yeah, I guess he knew.
Which, by the way,
There you go.
I've never seen Slitty Slickers, but I have seen the preview for the second one. Is there why is he walking with like a cow or something?
I never saw the second one. I have no idea.
Okay, well, I've heard things about it. It's a certain way.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll do what City Slicker September or something.
Oh,
Could do, actually.
Well, if there's a City Slickers 3 where they go to like the space version, the spaceport, Space
Ooh,
Slickers 3,
yeah.
that would be good.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you both being here for this discussion of
Great
Source
idea,
Code.
Peter.
Yeah.
Great idea. Peter, I think maybe next time we'll do Enemy Mine or maybe something else on the list. We got a couple we were talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
until then, I'll see both of you soon for talking about your favorite movies soon.
Yeah, thanks.
That'd be
All
good.
right. Thank you, everybody.